Hello and welcome to Science Research Weekly, Season 4, Episode 7, Sharks and Their Secret Bases. Get ready for exoplanet atmosphere, secret shark bases, 3D printed thrusters, active matter, dependent variables that can't be used for linear models, and Bible translations in R. This episode covers material from February 14th to February 20th. Let's get started with some research articles. First up here, vertical structures of an exoplanet's atmospheric jet stream. Astronomers were able to observe the 3D structure of the atmosphere of an ultra-hot Jupiter and found a unilateral flow of atmospheric circulation from the hot side to the cooler side, helping to test global circulation models. The full article is under accelerated article review, so you can look at it in a little rougher format, and I was able to download it here. Looks like some interesting pictures and observational data here. So there's that article. Moving along to a little bit more terrestrial topic, we have the next article. Shallow seamounts are oases and activity hubs for pelagic predators in large-scale marine reserve. Researchers investigated 3 underwater mountains, aka seamounts, and found elevated shark abundances, as well as other animals like predatory fish and seabirds. It was in the 2 shallower seamounts, but not in, I think, the deeper one. So they found 2 strategies for predators like sharks. One, an oasis, which I liken to a secret base of operations for these sharks. The second strategy is a hub for activity, so almost like a launch pad for the sharks to launch out into the greater ocean, do things, come back. So, interesting thing here, some fun pictures of graphs that include shark images. And they looked at, I think, 7 different species of shark and then other species of marine life. All right, moving along, back out into space, or at least conceptually. High impulse modular 3D printed CubeSat ElectroSprayThrusters, throttleable via pressure and voltage control. So don't get your spacesuits out yet. This is a proof of concept demonstration. The researchers 3D printed an electrospray thruster and tested in a vacuum. So if you're watching the video, there's models of this on the screen. It worked well, or better, compared to standard electrospray thrusters. So it looks like the proof of concept is working. There's a whole schematic of the experimental apparatus, figure 5 of the paper. And I think the idea behind this is to print these thrusters in space to put on CubeSats to move them around, etc. So having a flexible way to get thruster parts in space. All right. Next up, aberrant neuronal hyperactivation causes an age-dependent behavioral decline in Caenorhabditis elegans. So researchers looked at nematodes, so C. elegans, looked at hyperactivity of neurons, and actually found a causal relationship between said neuronal activity and age-dependent decline of a learned behavior called thermotaxis. So that's movements in response to heat. Let's see if I can find. Yeah, there's a figure 1 has a lot of the experimental design and results, and even showing sort of how thermotaxis works and the index they use to measure it. Okay, moving along into chemistry, we have an aperiodic chiral tiling by topological molecule self-assembly. So think of the mathematical problem of tiling, but then jump to real life and real molecules. Some molecules, these polyaromatic chiral molecules, they can tile in a way that doesn't repeat, so they're aperiodic. So some very beautiful images here from the paper of how these look, both sort of conceptually and with high-powered microscopes. Okay, final article for today, traveling strings of active dipolar colloids. This article starts out with a very startling sentence. Active matter describes a new class of materials that are composed of elements driven out of equilibrium by internal sources of energy. So the researchers here studied a self-assembled active colloidal polymer system in 3D composed of what they call Janus particles, assuming that's in reference to the two-faced Roman god Janus. Anyways, these particles in electric field, they form columns that look like worms and move around. And there are actually several weird and wonderful simulation videos in the supplemental information. Of course, they're static pictures, but that only tells part of the story. They do have actual images of, like live images of these particles, and then they have kind of simulate what's going on with these videos. So the actual videos themselves are simulation, but there are real pictures of really what's going on. So very interesting and sort of bizarre. I had a hard time even wrapping my head around what was going on. So definitely on the frontiers of knowledge there. All right, we will turn our attentions now to some research tools. The analysis factors has the post 6 types of dependent variables that will never meet the linear model normality assumption. We're talking categorical variables. We're talking ordinal variables, discrete counts, zero inflated, censored or truncated, and finally proportions. As the post says, if you have one of these, stop. Do not press go. Do not run a linear model. Generalized linear model, anyone? All right, on the R bloggers side of things, one new post from Tomer's stats blog. What's artificial intelligence all about? Well, he goes into talking about really AI models, large language models, are essentially the same as a linear model, whereas a linear model sort of has one line to fit the data, but you can do quadratic or polynomial. You can do more and more sophisticated ways to fit the data, and that's really essentially what these AI models are doing, but just with billions and billions of dimensions. So that was an interesting but succinct sort of conceptual point. All right, let's close out our research tool with some 3 new CRAN packages I thought were interesting. First, there's Logos, access to the Hebrew, Greek, and English versions of the Bible. There is Music XML, data sonification using Music XML, and Index R, a thoughtful saver of results. Closing out our time here with some research funding. There's no new funding again. So I'll continue to try something new in this final section. So jumping off from the analysis factor, are you interested in learning more about generalized linear mixed models? Why stop there? You can learn generalized linear mixed models for everything. It is one of the most popular stats videos I've ever created. I should have a link down in the description to either this video or this podcast. So if you want to take a look at that. I also have a Udemy course along the same vein, the last statistical model you ever need in SAS. I did create a discount coupon for the course if interested, and that should also be in the description below. I believe the coupon should be good for 4 more days. Well, Generalized Linear Mixed Podcast, thanks for joining me for Science Research Weekly. Science on.